I don't miss anything about the US enough to make me say, you know what, I'm gonna go back to the US. And by the way, as I tell you all the things I actually miss while living here in Dominican Republic about the US, I actually want to apologize. Right now, I'm getting over a chest cold, so that's why my voice sounds like this, okay? And by the way, if you're thinking about moving to Dominican Republic, watching videos is great, but the best way to actually do it is to rent an Airbnb or an apartment and come here for like a month or 2 months and just stay in the area where you're actually thinking about staying. And by the way, not every single place in Dominican Republic is the same. There are areas where you're like, hey, I don't miss anything about the US because it's just like the US, okay? But there are areas where, like I live, it's not the same. Not even close, okay? Now, let's get right into this video and do me a favor and smash the like button. Now, the very first thing I miss about the US are these three, which are, for example, three services, which is Amazon Prime, Insta Cart, and also Uber. And by the way, partially, this is actually my fault. I live like in a remote area, you know? I don't live in Santo Domingo. I don't live in Punta Cana or Santiago in like city areas, for example. No. So in my area, we don't have Uber at all. So that means that if I want to go somewhere, I gotta get a bus, I gotta get a moto taxi, or I basically just gotta drive there. There's no convenient way to just basically grab my phone, order an Uber, and just wait. I would be just basically waiting forever because it would never arrive. Also, Instacart. When I was in New York, I would basically just say, I don't really want to go to grocery shopping anymore. I'll just basically order my groceries, come to my house. No, that doesn't work here. And I miss that, but not really, because I noticed that back then, I was not just spending money on the service of delivery, but I was also being charged extra on each product because I was using Instacart, which I did not like. So I miss it, but I don't like it that much either. Then Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime here is like Amazon 1 week Prime, because either way, if it takes 2 days to actually get to where it actually lands in like Florida, because by the way it works is packages are not delivered directly to Dominican Republic, so you have to get a carrier, and the carrier is usually going to be in Florida. So they basically receive the product in Florida, and then from there on, there is no 1 day or 2 days. It's just as long as the carrier usually takes, which is basically about a week or a few days. So there's always that factor. Now, these are negative things, but at the same time, they're also positive things because they made me, hey, I cancel Amazon Prime. No more crazy spending and no more annual expense of like $120 anymore. I'm buying my own groceries, so that's also convenient. I basically save a lot more money. And no more Ubers. Ubers can get very expensive. Because Ubers are so convenient, you tend to use them a lot, and they're not cheap when you actually run all the numbers. Now, number two is something I never valued before until I actually got here. And that's going to be highways and roads. In the US, I didn't drive a lot per se, but when I did drive, everyone had the same exact complaints. Tommy, you have, for example, the traffic, and you have, for example, potholes. They suck. But here in Dominican Republic, we don't really worry about traffic, and we don't really worry about, for example, potholes, because there's not really that many potholes like that, okay, like in the US. However, though, we do worry about safety. While I've been here, I've gotten into 2 car accidents. One was in basically a parking lot. Somebody backed up without looking, hit me. Second time, I'm basically going to with my directions. I'm going to the left. Somebody just basically still wants to come through and hits me, okay? Here, it is super dangerous to drive, especially at night. And driving is like a danger. Every single time before you drive, you gotta basically pray because you don't know if you're actually gonna come home. Because the highways here, a lot of them don't have any lights. The pavement with the whole like the yellow lines, the white lines, those things sometimes are non-existent, and people basically just drive like they're crazy. They're mad, okay? So it can be super dangerous. While I've been here, I've seen 2 bodies on the highway. My friend the other day, literally like 3-4 days ago, saw a body. The other day I also saw some guy get into some car accident, and the other guy went home in a body bag, okay? It's not like a joke here. A lot of people don't make it home, so it's super dangerous. So the best thing I can recommend is a routine. Try not to drive at night and have a routine where you don't need to drive a lot, and just be very safe when you're driving. I know sometimes when people drive, especially for example my wife, for example, She loves to drive sometimes that if I'm in the right, I'm going to continue doing the things as I'm doing it. But sometimes, even if you're driving correctly, you have to kind of just like, okay, I'm just gonna pause, do what you're gonna do, and then I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, okay? Because it's sometimes not even worth it. Even if you're right, getting into a car accident and losing your life is not a joke. Here, it is super dangerous. And that's something I miss about the US. I miss just talking about traffic, potholes, and not talking about, hey, this guy didn't make it back home, okay? It can be super dangerous. Now, number 3 is going to be food quality. And when I say food quality, you're probably thinking, Tommy, I've been to Dominican Republic, or if you haven't, you probably have this idea of the food over there is amazing. It is great. No, it's not true, okay? The food, like, quality is terrible, for example, but the taste is actually great. It's phenomenal. You're gonna have food here, and it's gonna taste great. However, the quality of the food, you don't know exactly where the food is coming from, what they're putting into the food. You don't know how much pesticides are in the food, how much chemicals they put into the food. So it's like long term, when you're looking at the average Dominican, which has basically like a big belly and the woman suffers from high blood pressure and everyone is sick all the time, a big factor of that is the quality of food. You don't know exactly what you're eating, and you don't know how much stuff they're pumping your food with, okay? At least in the US, for example, you have a little bit more transparency. Although the transparency isn't that great once you do a lot of research, but you can kind of know, hey, this chicken was like grass fed or whatever, or pasture raised or whatever. This pork had no type of like thing like injected into it. You know, there's a little bit more transparency. There's like Whole Foods and so on. You pay more money, but at least you know you're getting, for example, better quality meat. So a big part of it is here, you don't know exactly what you're getting. And there's no labels here, for example. At least where I shop at, I haven't gone somewhere where you see something that says, oh, this meat is organic, this meat was grass-fed. You don't really see those things here. That type of mentality has not reached here. It's more like meat is meat, fruits are fruits. Pesticides, what's that? That's just normal stuff, you know. But these things cause massive health issues. So a big idea that I'm basically having is like how I'm buying some land and having like a little like farm on there, just to like have some animals and just raise myself. But yeah, that can get very problematic. That's an issue also in the US, but more here because there are a lot less options here because people requested a lot less. Now, number 4 is actually going to sound strange, but it's actually poverty. In the US, poverty is a lot more different than it is here in Dominican Republic. Here's what I mean. While I was in the US for a period of time, I was actually on the poverty line, okay? But this poverty line, we had housing, we had internet, we had a phone plan, we had food, we had basically our basic necessities taken care of. And I had friends that were also poor, and they had these basic necessities also taken care of, okay? They might have lived in areas that were not that safe, they didn't like it that much, but their basic necessities was taken care of. Now, is that everything a person needs? The answer is to live, yes, but to have a great life, no, obviously. But here in Dominican Republic, it's a lot more different. People here that are poor and in poverty, they don't have the basic necessities. And there are some people, I watched a video the other day, some guy came from Europe and he's like, yo, this is not a third world country, it's a development country. And there are a lot of people here that have a lot of money, but the truth is, that is true. But there are a lot more people here that don't have any money at all and have no resources at all. It all depends where you're actually going. And poverty here is somebody saying, hey, I don't have money to pay electricity. I don't have money to basically even have a house. I don't have money to have any food today, okay? So these things are crazy. And the social programs here are super lacking. There's no, for example, hey, I'm not doing that great, so I'm going to sign up for this program. It's going to help me out with the food, at least temporarily and so on. Those social programs just don't exist here. So poverty here is on another level. When you go to poor areas, it is poor. And when you go to these poor areas, it's not like people are terrible and they're bad. That's not my point. But there are a lot of dangerous places because of the poverty factor, okay? It's very important to consider that, all right? Poverty here is not like poverty in the U.S. Now, the last one, guys, the last thing I miss about the U.S. is going to be recreational activities like parks, like people that run, sports people. Also, for example, like just gym. You know, there are a lot more communities around, a lot more recreation activities, but here, those things are fairly lacking, depending on where you actually live. Where I live, which is basically a normal town where people live, people have to worry about work and raising families. These things aren't really out there that much. But if you live, for example, in Punta Cana and in Santo Domingo, my uncle lives in Santo Domingo, and he's a part of some clubs that do baseball and basketball. That's different over there. And there are running clubs over there too. And Punta Cana, even more. But depending on where you live here, those things are actually absent. Also, personally, where I live, and I personally miss this because this video is more about like what I personally miss, is like the gym. The gyms here are just absolutely terrible. You have maybe like 2, 3 good gyms, and they're always full and packed. And then you have some gyms that are like, they're terrible because it's just like so like compact like this. So it's like it's not the same quality. You know, when I was in New York, for example, I would go to Blink, which by the way is not a great gym. I was paying like, I think it was like maybe like $15 or $10 or whatever, but it was such a massive space. And it's because you had a massive demand, right? And it's also a big company, so they can afford to lease out this big area, lease out all those machines, and then just have people come in and people just sign up all the time. But here, it's like there's such a small amount of people that are actually educated and also interested in health and just gym and being fit. So because the market is absent, that also means, for example, the supply, like the gyms and so on, that's also going to be absent because no one's going to start something where it's going to go bankrupt because there's no business. So that's just something to consider. But by the way, I do want to say something. Largely, this video is all my fault in a sense. All these things that I miss, I could have them in some way. But again, I don't miss them enough to say, hey, I'm going to go live in the capital, or I'm going to go live in Punta Cana just to have these recreational activities or whatever. Because no, I like living here because my family's here. And that to me is a lot more important than those activities. So there are things I do to kind of just basically figure these things out that aren't that convenient, but I still get the results I actually want. But guys, thanks for watching this video. Those are some things that I basically miss about the US, but not enough to actually move back there. If you are considering moving here, just again, do like a 3-month trial with like an Airbnb and just check it out. Remember, moving for money is not the only thing, okay? Although it matters a lot, but there are factors to consider. So that's why I recommend it that way. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Peace.